Welcome into another edition of Ringside Review. I am Ethan Hrissadulu, joined alongside, as always, by Matt Kolpitz, taking a look at this past Monday night's Raw, but also we got to take a look at some of the ramifications of Saturday night's main event, because Matt, you had a little bit of a theory as to who might be joining the Seth Rollins stable. We talked to Logan Paul, but in fact, it ended up being Bronson Reed, the big man himself. Somebody who at one point, I think, dropped 6 tsunamis onto Seth Rollins, if I'm remembering correctly, on a Monday Night Raw. But Bronson Reed joining the faction. I love it. There is so much muscle now surrounding Seth Rollins to make him an unstoppable force with this group. How are you feeling about him as a surprise guy to join the group?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I feel like it's one of those things where you don't know that you need it until, it's kind of right in front of you. And even though my whole theory is Logan Paul, I thought I was cooking. He is still involved in the Jey Uso storyline, and Jey is still getting involved in Seth Rollins' storyline as he interfered last night on Raw. But it doesn't seem like that's going to be the tie-in. Maybe there's still potential if they're going to expand upon this group even further. But in terms of Bronson Reed, I thought it was interesting, as you mentioned, the point that, he, destroyed Seth with all those tsunamis, however many weeks back that was. So maybe it's a sense of Seth is all right, I know this guy's legit. I don't want to deal with that again. You're on my side. I thought it came out of left field. I feel like I didn't really see much speculation of Bronson on Twitter or just anywhere on social media. So I like it. I think when you compare the group to Evolution, as we kind of have been doing, it's very different. You have two, muscles, two bronze, and I think it's interesting to see if this is the group, if they're going to add more, how the dynamic can shift. But I think overall, I like it, and I definitely was genuinely surprised.
Yeah, going back to your point of not wanting to mess around with this guy, I feel like that almost seems like the sense of what Seth Rollins is building. And this goes going and peeling back the curtain a little bit as to why Seth Rollins would be putting this group together. It feels like he's bringing in guys that he would rather not have to deal with in his pursuit of another world championship. Obviously, he's not going to get somebody that's very proud like a Gunther, but if you can get somebody who, to the way Paul Heyman kind of explained it, underutilized, not being put in the bright spot like a Bronson Reed who has all the muscle in the world that you can possibly ever need alone, never mind having Bronson Reed flanking him on the other side as well. It feels like he's building out a group with a bunch of guys that the facade is it's for the future. It's obviously for himself. I think we all know Seth Rollins, being the architect he is putting together a unit that can help him succeed first and foremost before anything else. But this is looking like a faction that I think is going to potentially run Monday Night Raw, starting around Money in the Bank, and we'll touch on that in a second, through the year into WrestleMania next year, because you can't have two dominating forces like this with a brain like Seth Rollins plus the mouthpiece of Paul Heyman and not have them be the centerpiece of Monday Night Raw. I feel like, there's still some stuff going on with CM Punk, and I'm kind of at the point now where I'm ready for that to be kind of moved off of, and at some point I'm hoping that ends soon. But this feels like the group that's going to be running things for a while. And that brings me to my next point that I want to ask you about here. Seth Rollins in the main event last night, obviously winning his spot into the Money in the Bank contest. He is now one of the 6 entrants into the matchup. With him now being a part of it, I don't really see anyone else, especially with the group setup that he has now the way it is, with Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker, Money in the Bank, obviously, there's no disqualifications. You can do whatever you want in that type of matchup. This kind of brings me back to when the Authority was very heavily involved in things, and they themselves got heavily involved into the decision of a Money in the Bank contest. What was that? 10 years ago now at this point, maybe more. I don't really see how anyone in the men's match comes out a winner that's not named Seth Rollins.
Yeah, man, I hear you. And it does just feel like the writing on the wall. Because from here, if Seth is to lose, where does he go? Say CM Punk is to interfere in the Money in the Bank ladder match. All right, they can have another 2-3 matches. That's starting to enter Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley territory. We're just okay, it's getting stretched. Let's move on. I feel like that's kind of the vortex that CM Punk has been getting into. He was stuck in a feud with Drew McIntyre for so long, which don't get me wrong, it was entertaining. But they really have been seeming to really milk and drag out CM Punk's feuds. So with that being said, yeah, I do agree. I feel like now that Seth's in the match, it kind of makes sense. I feel like the main event last night was very defining because you could have had someone like Finn Balor win. Maybe Judgment Day would continue to be the top group on Raw, but it very much feels like they're having Seth Rollins and this new little group be the center point of Raw. They're opening every single show. They're closing every single
Yeah.
show. These are pretty much what we're going to be dealing with all year long. So I agree. And I think the only reason we do not see a Seth Rollins victory is if, again, it's a CM Punk run-in or some kind of interference. Maybe it's Jey Uso. Then maybe a guy like LA Knight or someone that has always been pitted to win a Money in the Bank but never did could win. But I think it's probably like almost an 85% chance I'm seeing a Seth Rollins victory at Money in the Bank.
Yeah, like I look at the landscape of the Money in the Bank group right now as it currently stands, and granted, there's still a spot or two that needs to be filled. I think there's 4 guys confirmed at this point. Maybe I'm wrong on the number, but I like Penta obviously qualified for it last night as well. I just don't see with what they're trying to build with Seth Rollins, and you could say, well, he doesn't need the Money in the Bank at this point. It's not necessarily about need. It's about what makes sense and what they're trying to build with this faction here. I feel like Seth Rollins not being the guy that eventually comes out on top, and you got a prime example of in a match where there's no disqualification type of stipulation, triple threat, his guys are going to get involved. They're going to overtake the competition. And I mean, Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker are basically like 2 guys put into one individually. So like you're talking 2 massive guys who will be able to help wipe out the competition. The numbers game will catch up to the rest of the group. And it'll be late in the match. Everyone will be fatigued. They will be overwhelmed. It just feels like the eventual winner is going to be Seth Rollins. And I'm looking forward to it. Don't get me wrong when I say this, but there is a piece of me that wishes that this maybe happened at Money in the Bank and not at Saturday night's main event. I feel like the payoff of Bronson Reed joining Seth Rollins and Bron Breakker at Money in the Bank by showing up unannounced and helping Seth Rollins win the briefcase almost would have made a little bit more sense. It almost felt like they saved a really good moment for what was a commercial-ridden, I was tweeting about it through the whole show, a commercial-ridden Saturday night's main event. And I don't know if they've all been like that, but it felt like every single match had more breaks, at least break time, than there was actual match time. It was crazy. But it feels like they went for the cheap pop on television as opposed to what would have made more logical sense. Because now, again, I'm excited for it. I just don't want to. I don't want to feel like I know who the winner's going to be, especially if it ends up actually being Seth Rollins. Maybe it's to throw us off the scent, sure, but right now it just feels like it's going in that direction. Now, something we need to highlight coming out of, and I just spoke about Penta a second ago, Chad Gable. You saw it, I'm sure, taking the bump of the night. And man, oh man, I can't believe he's okay. You can see up on your screen right now. How did he not break his neck there? Because he landed head first, head tilted backwards. Like, talk about, is this match about to get stopped type of moment? And Chad Gable got up and was fine. He was taking spots not even 30 seconds later.
Yeah, man, I think that is the craziness and just the crazy nature of injuries in this business is you can have moments like that with Gable where you're like, oh, this is it. And then just last week, we were talking about the Zoe Stark injury where her leg literally snapped. So you have gruesome injuries, and then sometimes they're okay. I mean, in my opinion, it's like these are probably some of the most conditioned athletes in the world because, yes, you look at the NFL, like they're going crazy, and NBA, NHL, you name it. But WWE is, 365 days a year. They don't stop training. So I don't know, maybe that helps them just like kind of survive these superhuman moments where you're like, he should be dead. But yeah, it was a crazy, crazy botch for sure. I think Penta is still adjusting out of his AEW and kind of like indie wrestling style. Still a little bit. There's still hints where once in a while he'll hit a move and it's like, you don't see that often in WWE. So, I'm glad he's okay. I'm glad he was able to finish with the match, put out his tweet and got the clicks. But it was definitely scary, and it makes me think of, something like I know in AEW, like Adam Cole, like just kind of jumped off the stage and like destroyed his ankle for like almost a year. Like sometimes the fluke injuries will take you out longer than, scenes that we see like this, and it's mind-boggling. But again, I don't put it past them. They're in incredible shape, and prayers and shout out to Chad Gable for getting through what he was put into last night.
Do you ever feel like Penta's trying to do a little too much in the ring coming from where he is and maybe trying to like prove a point about the wrestling style and just because I feel like, and I don't want to say I've been bothered by Penta being in WWE. That's not the right way to put it, but there's moments in matches, like you kind of mentioned, where it feels like you walk away going, that's not typically something you see in WWE. And I've up and down said on this show multiple times, I'm a WWE guy. That's what I watch. I'm not used to other wrestling styles. It is what it is. But like something like that, where you're trying to set up two guys at once, and one of them is like a pile driver in a way, like at that point, it's just like tone it down a hair. You know what I'm saying? For safety's sake, especially in that situation.
Yeah, and I think the thing that we need to remember is that WWE just doesn't cater to the flippy stuff and the crazy style. As you said, being a WWE fan, we're so used to one style of wrestling, really. Yes, you have high flyers, but not to the level that we're seeing in other companies. I think the whole merge with AAA, the Hijo del Vikingo, however you pronounce his full name, but like he does some crazy flips, and they've been showing highlight packages of that. You're just not used to seeing that in WWE because they have eyes against it. For so long, I think it was like the pile driver and various moves were banned. They definitely like to focus on safety, the safety of the wrestlers, which of course is an incredible thing and should be a priority. But I don't know. I just think back to like when AJ Styles first came over, he was kind of struggling with the slow down pace of WWE. And I'm sure you could point to every single guy that's come from TNA or AEW or you name it. And it was an adjustment. So I do think Penta just needs to realize like he doesn't have to go crazy. He can do the Mexican Destroyer, and that's enough to pop the crowd.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to be doing the double pile driver flippy stuff. So yeah, I definitely think that he needs to just take a step back, realize who the audience is now. He's not in AEW anymore. And just continue to adapt and really prioritize safety over a flashy social media moment.
Yeah, like the Mexican, like you said, like to your point, I love the Mexican driver. It's one of the crazier thing. Every single week I see it, I'm like, this is absolutely insane that he's being allowed to do this. But like clearly he's been doing it a long time. Like I trust him, and I'm not trying to say he's an unsafe worker. It's just like there is a point where things start to get a little too crazy with some of the things I feel like I see from other places outside of WWE, where I'm like, you probably don't need to be doing that. Like the Mexican driver is enough for me to pop every single time. Like I don't need the Mexican driver and like some sort of sunset flip thing you're doing with another guy at the same time. Like at some point, like where is the ceiling here? The last thing I want to touch on before we go, and I'm going to throw the question out to you because I'm starting to, I feel like maybe the rose-tinted glasses are finally coming off on this heel turn with John Cena. And I'm asking you if there is maybe a John Cena heel turn problem in WWE where it feels like it is now becoming very run-of-the-mill, very standard, and it's almost becoming predictable now where every single John Cena match is in some form a title to the face at the very end. Today he did a little bit of a pivot with the I'm actually going to kick in the nether region, then hit you with the title for the win type thing. But it's becoming very repetitive. And now we have John Cena and Logan Paul being like thrown together randomly. And again, I know Saturday night's main event was on a tight timeline. I feel like the whole ending of that show was just really, really thrown together fast because they ran out of time. But like, it's Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso, Logan Paul, John Cena. It just feels like we're slamming stuff together for the sake of slamming it together right now. Like the idea of R-Truth and John Cena is funny for the memes, but it's not something I wanted one of John Cena's last matches to be. It just feels like there's a bit of staleness going on with this whole thing right now, and I'm starting to wonder when we're going to get some of those more premier matches out of John Cena for the last few appearances he has left in the WWE at this point.
Yeah, man. I mean, just to summarize what I'm about to say is I'm definitely worried, and it hurts me to be so conflicted because, going to WrestleMania, I was so hyped for Cody and Cena. Like, these are my two favorites at the moment, and favorite of all time being Cena. But I feel like the last time I was really excited about a Cena moment or match was when he turned heel. At the Elimination Chamber was when, he wins the Chamber. You're like, whoa, like he won in a kind of underhanded, non-typical Cena fashion. Then he turns heel. Incredible. From there, it's really just fallen off. And my confliction is this, and I know I mentioned it on this podcast a couple times, where like, yes, it's his character. He says he's just going to ruin wrestling. Maybe the whole point of his character and whatnot is for us to feel like this, to feel like it's underwhelming, to feel like his matches just aren't what we're used to. The big time John Cena, Super Cena, like he's just not going to give that to us anymore. So if that is just what it is on paper, okay, like I can accept it. But my whole confliction is that I don't like that concept from the start. I've always said it just feels like kind of an excuse to be lazy. It's an easy way to cut corners. Cena doesn't have to kind of put on a show anymore. Maybe that's just what it is. Maybe he's just not capable of putting on the matches he used to, which at the end of the day, that's the case for anybody that's, just getting up there in age as a wrestler and over time. But I don't know, man. I'm just conflicted because I feel it. Like him fighting R-Truth, like, that was cool in 2011, but in 2025, it's like you knew he was going to just run right through him. And then now to fight Cody Rhodes again in this thrown together tag match, it really does feel lost.
Yeah.
And I do think the only other match that was solid was him and Randy Orton. I do think that was a good showcase. But again, they're older. It's going to be a slower pace, slower style. And I'm accepting it, but I'm definitely, like I said, just concerned. I don't really know what the payoff will be if Cena's going to just turn face at the end. Like I'm excited to see how it plays out, but I will admit that the process along the way has been slow and torturous. And if that's what they're going for, fine, they're doing a great job. But if that's not what they're going for, it's falling flat.
Yeah, you did a great job putting that whole thing together. Like you took a lot of the words right out of my mouth, and I'm at the point right now where I kind of just wish that like this would kind of, like the heel turn would kind of end, because if they're going the direction that you mentioned, at this point, like I would just rather them have him turn back to being a good guy by like SummerSlam and give me some of those exciting John Cena matches at the very end. I feel like you put it in a good way. It feels lost. It feels like it's being slammed together and rushed. And I don't know if they're just waiting for something more towards the tail end of his run. I'm not sure, but I don't know. Again, the rose tinted glasses feel like they're off, and now I'm starting to get a little bit worried, but we're out of time. Matt, as always, appreciate you joining me to talk some wrestling. We'll be back next week, same time, same place, for another edition of Ringside Review. As always, you made it to the end. Greatly appreciate it. Catch you later.